Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about AI and the mortgage industry and how potentially AI could make it easier, faster, and more efficient and probably get you a better loan.
That is very true. So the way underwriting works now is, so two things. One, old school underwriting is where you fill everything out by hand, it gets turned in, a loan processor reviews everything, and then cranks it into a system. Maybe the system has some sort of an algorithm or something like that to see if you fit into their model. Most banks now have you fill everything out online so that it just gets fed into the algorithm automatically, makes it a little bit faster, cuts out some labor. But it's kind of the same kind of thing where, do you fit this bucket? It's kind of like going shopping, and does the dress fit? Is this the right size? If it's the right size, great, you can have the loan. If it's not, so sorry, good luck to you.
Okay, but that process, though, is human involved.
It is human involved because remember, the algorithm is programmed by humans.
Okay.
So that's the first part. And then the second part is anything that falls outside of the parameters of the algorithm has to be evaluated by a human, and that human is probably even more restrictive than the algorithm.
And biased, potentially.
There is human bias. We all have biases based on our life experience, and that doesn't make us bad people. It just makes us people.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the specific things that an AI can do. So what I did was I went into Chat GPT on OpenAI.
Your new best friend.
And I typed in, how can AI help the mortgage process? And as you can see, it came up with 5 things. We're going to talk about all of these individually. And it said AI can help streamline the mortgage process by automating various tasks such as, we'll go through these one at a time. Okay, 1. Verifying and analyzing applicant information, including income, credit score, and employment history. Now, in the future, let's assume that the AI already knows everything about everybody. So how fast does this happen?
So providing that the information is readily available, it happens instantaneously.
Okay.
But remember, some of this has to be done manually.
Okay.
Because, for example, verifying employment, unless you work for a large employer, it's still going to mean a letter, a phone call, an email to your employer, or a fax to your employer, or something like that to verify employment.
Okay.
Because let's face it, there are tens of thousands of small businesses out there, and they are not linked up to all these systems.
An AI, though, could probably instantly generate an email we're talking futuristic. The AI would just, within seconds, there would be a phone call to the business saying, hey, I'm with this credit company. We're just calling to find out if, this person is actually employed. They're applying for a loan. We want to make sure this is accurate information.
Absolutely, yes.
Probably the person wouldn't know it wasn't. It wouldn't be like Stephen Hawking, right? His voice. It would be a human. It would sound like a human. Okay, so we could do that. Okay, number 2, identifying and comparing mortgage options based on the applicant's specific financial situation. So the problem with mortgages has always been these buckets are really limited, and they're very strict in how there's not a lot of flexibility in them. They try to make new products, but an AI literally could make every loan completely unique to the person.
See, and I think that's where the true value of this comes in.
Okay.
Because let's face it, kind of like my example of going shopping for clothes or shoes or something like that. There are these sizes out there, but let's face it, very few of us are that particular size, right?
Yeah, right.
We all have some kind of range. So it's the same thing with the loan products. We all have different life experiences, different things that have gone on in our lives. So it would be nice if our lives were individually evaluated rather than just somebody saying, well, you fit close enough into this bucket.
Right. And the way that these models are built is there's a risk premium paid because there's risk. And an AI is more likely to potentially be able to de-risk because it can get more granular on your specifics for your situation. Because if it knows that a person like you who just started this, just got out of med school and just became a doctor and just went to this hospital, and it can look at everybody who's ever done that and sees, wow, they end up in a specialty in a couple years and their income triples, and that this mortgage is not going to be a problem for them. The whole thing, like, it understands more than just a person who goes, I'm just going to look at your last 2 earnings you made $80,000 the last 2 years each. That's great.
Right? And so that's the beneficial part. And then the scary part, right, is, we all hear about these people who absolutely fret over what preschool that their child's going to get into. But this is kind of where this is going, because this AI can go all the way back and say, okay, people who went to this preschool, went to this elementary school, went to this middle school, this high school, this college, this degree, this graduate degree at this location, and the whole thing. And they build this model. So if I somehow don't fit that, then I am going to be somehow penalized for that.
The third one is automating the underwriting process. This is all the back-end paperwork that usually takes a few days. Reducing the time and effort required for manual review and approval.
Right, and we talked about that at the beginning, because there is, certainly right now, there's still a manual review.
Right. Okay, number 4, detecting and preventing fraud through advanced algorithms and machine learning techniques. So the AI over time would understand which types of transactions tended to be, like which things ended up being fraud, and to look for that.
Right.
And it could do one or two things. It could either deny it based on that, or it could have a higher risk premium, that it would charge a higher rate, and then that way that bucket of loans is protected against fraud, because they're charging you more maybe up front and in the loan. So if it ends up being fraudulent, that it's not just, it doesn't take out the whole portfolio.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the way it works right now is, if you have a good enough story, then a lot of times that's good enough and your loan gets approved. Okay,
so let's talk about that. There's human bias in this, It's the phone call to the LO calls the underwriter buys off on the sob story, that's a fraud. Oh, but we need the money because it's this old house in this one neighborhood, and we're going to use $100,000 to fix it up. And of course, the house never gets, it's just $100,000 just disappears one day, right? And the people default. And it turns out that they weren't even the ones buying it. It was some other person buying it, but they told them, hey, I'll give you 10 grand if I can use your credit score. Like, there's all these things in there that it can recognize.
Right.
That a human, and even an AI would be able to do it. It would be literally much better. This is something that would be much better than a human at. Probably.
It would be. And so look, for the majority of people, this would be beneficial. Right? So we can all agree on that. It's for the one-off people that it's difficult for them to explain, or it's difficult for them to relay that in a way that the AI can understand, that those people would get hurt by that. But for most people, this would work well. And let's face it, the AI is working for the lender, and the lender is not going to care very much if they miss a couple in 100 people, as far as denying those people or charging them an extra premium or something like that.
Right. The fifth one I think is the most interesting. Providing personalized advice and recommendations to help applicants make informed decisions. So
yeah, I love that. I think that's great, because that's one of the things that happens now. And I think to all of us, no matter how savvy you are as far as your finances are concerned, guidelines change all the time, and it would be nice to know, hey, I'm thinking of moving in 6 months, 10 months, 18 months, whatever. What can I do to improve my financial picture so that I can do better? Right now, what's out there is algorithms, right? So, you can do your credit scenario on your credit card, CreditWise or whatever that is, or, from Discover Card, or from your bank, or from Credit Karma, or whomever. And those are okay, but they're so limited. And I think the AI can tap into a far broader database.
Okay.
And it can really look at your past history. It can maybe better understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And maybe give you more sophisticated advice.
So it's basically this FICO model that was built.
Yes.
Fair Isaac. FICO stands for Fair Isaac Corporation. FICO, and it is a company. It was an organization that was made to build an estimated financial model of risk. That's all it does. And there's, as we know, there's like 17 different FICO scores, right? And one of them is to buy a house. But you really don't even need to use it. An AI could literally just look at it could analyze your bank, risk history. It
Right.
can analyze your
Well,
education history.
So to that point, I mean, an AI would, provide that you gave it access, would analyze your spending history. Now, not just that you're spending, $100 here and $800 there, but exactly what it is that you're spending your money on. Because most people are using some sort of electronic form of payment, so that all of that is being tracked currently, but it would be tracked maybe to your benefit as well, because it could look at your spending and it could say, hey, I know that you like Starbucks, but, and I'm picking on Starbucks, but you're spending $183 a month on Starbucks. Maybe we could cut that back a little bit and put some of that money to pay off some debt maybe, or, do something different with it. Or, I see that you're spending several $100s on going to ball games. Have you thought of cable?
Right.
Just things like that. But it can take a look at all of your expenditures, and it can offer some good advice for you to consider, how you spend your money and how you can maybe spend it more wisely, so you can accomplish the goals that you have stated you want to accomplish.
AI is only going to get stronger. It's going to be more relevant in our lives. I think the time frame on this, I don't think we're going to see this in a decade. That's my over-under, is 10 years.
Well, I think we're seeing it now. I think it's going to be baby steps.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think, like what we just talked about, where an AI basically you say, hey, I think I want to buy this house, and the AI goes, by the time you walk in the door, you say, hey, could I buy this house, and how much, could I borrow? What would my payment be? And then you walk through the house, and by the time you're walking out the door, the AI says, okay, here's the numbers. This is what we can do. Right? And then you basically send that over to the other person and go, this is what I can do. I can do this to buy the house. And then they go, okay, let's do it. And then you move in like 3 days later. So seriously, the mortgage process is designed because humans have to do a lot of work. There's a lot of human work that has to be done.
I think that's part of it, but I think it's like with a lot of professions. There's not a whole lot going on behind the curtain.
Right. Well, maybe. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about before we bail out of here and end the video. Okay. This, I think, is really critical. Let's talk a little bit about human bias with regards to protected classes. An AI is not going to... I read all these articles that say, oh, well, people that fit into this, whatever, race, sex, national origin, etc., are discriminated against by the bank. The bank's discriminated against them somehow.
Well, so with the
AI,
respectfully, I kind of disagree with that, because when you fill out the application, you can mark that you choose to not identify what race you are. So then how is somebody going to know what race we are? And before somebody says, well, based on your name, okay, look at my name. What race am I? I'm guessing that you're going to have a hard time figuring out what race I am.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
sure. People get married, they get,
Right. And okay, I agree. Todd Miller, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty vanilla. Okay, but, there are so many unusual names now, right? So the idea that you can just tell based on somebody's name or where they live or where they've gone to school, you can't always tell. Yes, and I understand that there are certain higher education schools that cater to certain groups, and I'm not ignorant of that. But we're talking just by and large, right? Look, if you went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and that's what you're going to base somebody's race on, good luck, okay?
Right. Versus if you went to Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C.
Right. So yes, there is some bias out there that could be attached to these things, but for the most part, I think that most financial decisions are actually based on hard numbers.
Yeah.
And the issue with the hard numbers is that they don't tell the whole story.
Right.
And one of the discussions we had before the video was, well, one of the stories that I brought up to Todd was, okay, so you take people of my gender, which I realized that men take paternity leave too, but by and large, it's women who take maternity leave, and it's by and large women who choose to cut back on their careers or step out of their careers altogether for child rearing, right?
And some might be single.
And some might be single. So let's say that you're dealing with a traditional family where you've got two parties, and one party of either gender decides to stay home to raise children, right? And then they raise their child to maybe age 2 or 3, and then they go back to work, and then there's another child born, and then they stay home again until age 2 or 3, and then they go back to work. And so you've got this patchwork of career and work history. Mm-hmm. And so it's very difficult for somebody to sometimes qualify for a loan under those circumstances because they don't have this long uninterrupted history of work, right? Or
they don't meet the minimum, like, you have to have made X amount of dollars for the last 2 years.
Right.
The AI would be smart potentially.
Right. So the idea is that the AI would understand that because it would have access to all this data, right? I wouldn't even have to tell it that, hey, we had a new child in the family. It would know that because it could see that on my tax return because there's a new person on there. It could see that through all these other ways. And I wouldn't even have to explain that. It would be self-explanatory. And I would get, if you will, some sort of a prorated credit, for lack of a better word, for that time, not that I was unemployed or underemployed because of an unwillingness to work or because my chosen profession is being phased out, but rather because of family circumstances.
Right. I think that overall we will see some AI implemented into the mortgage process in very small parts, but I think it's a decade. I think 5 to 10 years from now, we will still see the exact same process that exists. Mortgage industry, like real estate, is very difficult to change. Remember, they said in 1995 that the president of NAR said that in a decade, real estate agents would be non-existent in 1995. This internet, houses are going to be on the internet. They won't need real estate agents. They would be gone. Back then, 70% of all transactions were done through MLSs with agents. 30% were done offline. It actually turned the corner because now over 90% are done because it's a bigger market and it's where everybody's going to buy a house. Nobody's driving through neighborhoods. They're all going online. So everyone wants their house online. The only way really to get online is to go through MLSs, so you're everywhere.
Right.
And maybe that's the first thing that an AI sort of fixes in real estate, is it maybe takes out some of the services that agents do, or it makes it easier for the agent and the homeowner. But I think the mortgage industry, I think the same thing is the mortgage loan officers would be gone in 10 years or whatever. I don't think the mortgage industry is designed, and I think it would take a long time to change the way they think, the way the model is built. Actually, it's if you think about it, it's humans and structure are getting in the way of our own progress by just letting, because they don't want to, maybe they don't want to take the risk. What if the AI is wrong? What if it's giving people loans that shouldn't be, and then people that should, it's not giving them loans, and then it turns out in the end that there's the default rate goes up, and they've lost out on opportunity on doing loans on people that would have been a good credit risk, right? And if it loses money, then it would hate that.
Right. So here's the thing. There are a lot of human stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
And they all have their little fiefdoms to protect.
Right.
And, until we get to somebody who is willing to innovate and willing to do this and show that it works and it works profitably, the same way that other industries have been completely re-engineered, this will be re-engineered too, but it just is not, it's not ready for that to happen yet, and not necessarily because the technology isn't there as much, but because of the humans that are in the way. I kind of liken it to, our tax code. There's no reason why we can't all do our taxes on the back of a postcard,
right.
But there are all these stakeholders, all the entire accounting industry. I mean, there's a million of them out there, literally.
Yeah, tons of small businesses that just do your taxes for you.
Right.
They're all over the place.
So there's a lot of that out there. So because of all these people that have a stake in keeping the status quo, it's sometimes very difficult to innovate.
Technology has replaced jobs forever. Anytime something, it started with manufacturing, where they could take and use a machine to make things faster. So they got rid of people, right? They just built machines. But that created new jobs. You had to build the machine. So instead of sharpening a nail to make it sharp, you built the machine that formed the nail, right? Right. So you did that. And then when electronic technologies came, then it replaced more humans, because we don't no longer have operators when you have to make the long distance. But we used to, a long time ago, you had to call the operator. And then you had to dial 0 and tell them, hey, I want to call this phone number and this other thing. And they had to place it for you, because they were manually in the back end plugging in. Then computers came along. Computers, you could direct dial, which was a big deal. Same thing with, intersections used to be manually controlled until they come up with a system of lights that were timed, right? Could you imagine if we didn't have that, how we couldn't survive, because we need that tech. So the world's not really producing more people in the numbers that it needs to produce to support us in the future as everything advances. So we need this technology. And since so much of what we do is turned into data, everything's decided based on data, we need to have data systems that are reliant, that don't require humans, like an AI.
Right.
Because potentially in the future, a couple hundred years from now, the AIs will be doing everything. They'll say, hey, we've determined there's a desire for this product. We're going to literally send out an army of robots to build a factory, to then build this product, to then, give the product to the people we know that need it. And you'll just basically sit home and this thing will show up that you didn't know you needed. And that's futuristic, but, I definitely think this is a thing. I think 10 to 20 years is maybe the sweet point. We're going to see more. If you haven't played with Chat GPT, you can just Google it. It's on OpenAI. You can just create an account and go in, and you could tell it anything. You could tell it, I want, write me a 1-page history paper on the Peloponnesian Wars. And no kidding, it'll write you something that a teacher could read and wouldn't know that a human didn't write it. It's that realistic. And it's unique. They wouldn't be able to Google it and go find it on the internet.
And if you want something scary about AI, go watch, the Philip K. Dick short story. Anyway, just Google Philip K. Dick. He's got all kinds of futuristic cool stuff, and what happens when AI takes over and just keeps delivering stuff to you.
Oh my God, yes. It was a Philip K. Dick short story about a civilization that this factory was run by AI, and the AI kept sending them product. Like, it just kept sending them stuff, and it was basically, they couldn't outrun it. Every time they tried it, and they were more in like a, they had to actually move out of the city into the woods, and then the AI kept drones just bringing them stuff, and it kept cluttering up, and they kept moving. And then they got representatives that were robots from the AI company to come out, and they said, look, we don't need this stuff, stop sending it to us. But the AI basically determined that they were wrong, that they needed this stuff, that they were going to keep sending it to them. And it was just, the AI had sort of taken over. It's just delivering. It was like mass producing stuff. They couldn't shut down the factories. And the factories were just sending them stuff nonstop. And there was so much stuff they had to move. I think if you go on like Netflix or Amazon Prime, you can find the thing. It was super funny, but that's definitely AI out of control.
Right. So we're not advocating AI out of control. We are advocating beneficial AI.
Yeah.
If you found the video interesting, entertaining, if you would like to share it with somebody, we would appreciate it. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.